Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 7 of the Wired Nerdy podcast. We are very excited for this episode. My name is Keith. This is my good friend Doug, who is my co host and
Hey,
friend,
how's
of
it going?
course. And for this first episode, we have a special change up from our normal format. We are thrilled and honored to have our first special guest interview. At the Wired Nerdy podcast, as you know, if you've been listening, we love to discuss fun and interesting things. Today's topic will be probably the closest that we will ever get to covering full-on athletics and sports. Of course, we will get geeky with some of our questions with our friend here, but it is truly a unique topic and worth our time. Our guest for this episode is known as Frank the Tank Holland, and he is a professional champion of slap fighting. Frank is a renowned people's champion who recently switched to the global UFC sponsored Power Slap League. Now, you may be asking, what is professional slap fighting? We're going to dive into that first, my friends. Frank, thank you for taking time and spending it with me and Doug. We are so happy to have you here, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
So, right off the bat, for context, because people may not know, this is a relatively, it's been around, I'm sure, but it's starting to become very popular. What is professional slap fighting? Can you give us a context? What is it? What are the rules? What's the point of it? How does it work?
So basically, simple part of it is two guys stand across from each other, um, at a barrel, or in the new league, they have like a stand thing, but they basically take turns smacking each other. Um,
Oh man.
Usually, in the new league, it's 3 rounds. Unless it's a championship fight, then it'll go up to 5. Um, Decisions are usually made either by points, disqualification, or somebody quits, or a knockout.
Okay, so there are knockouts. All right.
And rules they're pretty simple. No stepping, so you can't move your feet or anything like that. They have to be in a stationary position. Um, no flinching, so like you can have like your natural flinches that the body will just do on its own when something's coming towards your face. But nothing that'll like affect the power of the slap. And
So you've got to take the full blunt or brunt of the attack, or not attack, but slap. Yeah.
yeah, no clubbing. So like you
Oh,
can't hit with like this part of your hand and below. It's considered a club, and it can't go past the tip of your chin.
yeah. So palm is the focus that you want. Is that what you're focusing on when you're swinging it? Is that the technique?
So basically, what you're doing, if you look at your hand, you have this little like kind of cup here,
Mhm.
and that's where you're basically putting the end of the chin.
Gotcha. So right on the side there. Wow.
Mhm.
So did this get its start where in the country? Like, are there regions? Well, we'll get into leagues, but like what you're doing for now, but just from an origin standpoint, like did this get invented somewhere? Do you even know where it came from?
So when I first started it, I had kind of like looked it up just to see if there was anything around, and the only thing I could find is they actually used to do them at tattoo conventions just for
Oh,
fun. Another way to make money and distract people while they were waiting to get tattoos or whatever.
hmm.
But the leagues kind of started in Poland that I know of, was where it started
Wow.
to get super popular.
Really? I had no clue. That's fascinating. You mentioned tattoo parlors. I immediately thought of like remember the old 80s movies Over the Top, which is like I think it's
The
Sylvester
arm
Stallone.
wrestling movie.
They do
Yeah,
arm wrestling, they had the scorpion. I don't know. I think of things that, happen in bars and tattoo parlors. So
such a good movie.
it's a great movie. So that's awesome. Doug, launch into the next one, which we kind of already started to get into, but I'm gonna let you go full on. Let's go.
Yeah. You've been doing this a while, right? How did you first get into it?
About 5 years ago, I was trying to get started on MMA, and it was kind of just a fun thing. I love the athletic part of it, the physical aggression, all of that. And I ended up getting pneumonia, and I was in the ICU unit. And then when I got out, I couldn't breathe the same. I didn't have the lung capacity. I was on an inhaler for about 2 years after that, and I could never build up the ability to breathe right and make my lung capacity bigger so I could fight because you need cardio.
Yeah.
And I was already friends with the promoter of Slap Fight Championship, and he invited me to do one of these fights. And you kind of think it's crazy, but you're like, hey, it might be fun. And I'm like, I don't need to run, so let's see. And I
There you
was
go.
300 plus pounds going in to slap another guy that was nearly my size. So
Wow.
it's like, let's see what happens. And I won, and I enjoyed it. I mean, even though it was super painful, um, I actually really liked it.
That's
So
awesome.
I've been doing it ever since.
So how many years have you been doing it total, would you say, like career wise, like up to this point?
About 5 years now.
About 5 years. And what is your current record right now? Now, I know you had different leagues. You were doing more regional stuff. Now you're kind of doing the big leagues with the UFC. What was your record? Walk us through the timeline of what your record was like. When were you like, were you just crushing it at first? Did you have ups and downs? What was your record like? How did that go for you?
Well, the easiest way to explain it, since I was near the very beginning, there wasn't a whole lot of people who did it. So we ended up facing a lot of the same people. Um, I was I've always stayed near the top of the rankings, been pretty good at it. So I have faced he was the heavyweight championship. He just lost. Um, I faced him 5 times and lost every time.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
just an amazing guy, can take
Yeah.
so many hits, and I just couldn't beat him. So I my total record right now is 10-10. I had 18 fights before I went to Power Slap, and I've lost both the fights I've done with Power Slap. Um, but so my record right now is 10-10 with 5 of those losses to the same person.
Wow. So you have a nemesis. That's what it sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah.
A healthy nemesis. There's a
Yeah.
respect.
Eh, not healthy for me, but yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it.
So does your record carry over to Power Slap, or are you kind of starting brand new?
Uh, on their website, it starts brand new, and I'll be honest with you. Everybody looks at the numbers like, hey, this guy's going to be more popular because he has a whole lot of wins. But the
Hmm.
way I think about it, I just have fun doing it. I could care less if I have 1,000 losses and 1 win. I enjoy the sport.
That's awesome.
So other people will look at it like, hey, his record's good, we like him, or his record's bad, he needs to go.
Huh.
So it's kind of a matter of opinion. Do I want to
Oh,
win all the time? Of course. I don't like losing, but it happens.
Wow.
huh.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. So I know like boxing and those have weight classes and divisions. Are you in a league or weight class or division in slap fighting?
Yeah. So when I first started, I was at super heavyweight, and I was able to drop down weight to make it into heavyweight. So with slap fight, I did both weight classes. I would change depending on what fight they offer me. I would fight super heavyweight or heavyweight. Um, I per, per, I stay in heavyweight now.
Is there one you prefer over the other? Like you had easier competition or harder competition in one weight class versus the other?
I wouldn't really say any of it was necessarily easy. There's differences in the weight classes, but there's also differences in the people themselves. So
Hmm.
one weight class could have a guy who's super like powerful and hits really hard, but can't take a whole lot of hits, and then there'll be the same guy in the same weight class that can do both, or vice versa. Any of those differences.
Is the technique relatively the same though across the classes, or do you think weight class wise does impact your technique?
Personally, I would say weight class definitely impacts the technique because if you have a guy that's nearly 400 pounds, he's not going to be able to like bend at his knees and move his hips like somebody who's 260 pounds and can move so much better than that guy can.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. That makes total sense. How do you train for something like this? I mean, it's got to be different. I mean, you mentioned the lung capacity and the cardio aspect, but what are the important elements that how you approach your training and what do you need to do for something like this? I mean, do you smack yourself in the face when you have people hitting you or like, what do you do?
So for me, I concentrate since I'm already kind of a bigger guy. I concentrate a lot more on like flexibility and mobility. Concentrating on being able to like be flexible with my shoulders and stuff. So I don't have an issue swinging my arm around or moving my hips, that kinds of stuff. You have some guys who concentrate a lot more on strength and building muscle. I feel like if you build muscle, it's good, of course. It's going to make you stronger. But for instance, if I built a whole bunch of muscle on my shoulder, it's going to restrict the amount of movement I get going across.
Hmm. It makes me think of almost like a picture, like inside of baseball. You know how they can move certain ways and have certain movement ranges. I think you would be at an advantage if you had certain mobility
Mhm.
ranges within your shoulder and joints, right? I mean, that's it sounds like that would be a huge benefit to you.
Yeah, definitely. There's one of our guys, the guy who actually just won the heavyweight championship, who I would put his swing as close to a baseball pitch as you could possibly get.
Wow. Have you guys ever measured the pressure? Is there any machine or is there any way to measure the speed at which you're moving or the force of impact? Has that ever been done or ever been talked about at any point?
Actually, when we did the qualifying event, the first one I did with Power Slap, they actually did a lot of measurements. They had us hit. It's called a power cube, and basically it measures like I think it's called the human force of the hit, and they attached a thing around our wrist that measured the velocity, and then they also measured like our neck strength and our shoulder strength.
Fascinating. The technology behind that. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
You can actually look it up on the Power Slap website and see it all.
They're like stats?
Mhm. Yeah, for
Really?
every person.
I'm just envisioning there being like baseball cards or your name on it with like stats. Oh yeah, well I got Frank the Tank. His neck strength is such and such, like RBIs or something like that. So there could be a big future here.
Uh,
Doug, I think you're up on the next one.
So, do you have any entry music, or do you just kind of walk out on stage?
Do they announce you? And yeah, that's a great question. I've
Yeah.
never seen one. There's Doug. Like, how does
I'm
that work?
always just relating back to UFC and boxing, and kind
The
of they
WWF?
put on a little
Sorry,
show.
WWE.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Fireworks, Frank the Tank in the sky.
so in Slap Fight, they do it a certain way. They have like it's like a kind of like a card that shows stats and stuff like that. And then with this event that we just did with Power Slap, they let us choose our music, and then they do like another kind of stat card, kind of like what the UFC does when you see like it'll tell like their best qualities or whatever, or how many wins, all of that kinds of stuff. They've started doing that, so getting to choose the music, yeah, I get to.
Oh, that's so cool.
All right. So, what's your choice of music? We have to know.
So for the walkout, my first choice is always Nefix, the greatest.
Awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Good choice.
Do you have a walkout song?
That's it.
Oh, that's just straight up. That is your theme.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is so cool. They let you pick that.
Mhm.
That's a good question, Doug. I hadn't
That's
even
really
thought about.
cool.
That's awesome. So, like in all of this, what is the worst injury you have inflicted on someone else? The worst injuries you have caused?
Uh, I'd say the worst injury was probably the swelling in the match between me and the Hammer.
Like his face? Like was it his jawline? Like what happened?
Like his cheeks swelled up to probably about that much farther
Oh
from
my
Oh
his
gosh.
man.
from his face.
And you can
Uh,
get you didn't you mention to me once before, it isn't just bruising. What else happens in those injuries beside the swelling? The other thing that you mentioned to me that can happen was shocking. Like
uh, um, so you can get at least what I've experienced. It was actually the time that I figured out you can cut somebody with a slap
yeah.
in between the fingers. Will actually, when it puts the pressure on the skin, can actually cut. Um, the impact, because we wear mouth guards, the impact of the cheek versus the mouth guard can also bust the inside of the cheek. Um, I've had I've had two busted eardrums.
Wow. Is there any rules about having to do they have to kind of stay away from your eardrums or
Well, it's kind of hard. So, the way you line up the hand,
Mhm.
most people's hands are usually bigger than the other person's face from
Sure.
their chin. So it's going to cover your ear, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. We wear cotton balls in slap fight, and then there's like a foam kind of thing that you would use for like shooting, that we put in our ears for the power slap. And I mean, it works, but the possibility is still there for it to happen.
Sure. The amount of pressure I can just see that's going to be hard to combat against, I would see there. So,
You mentioned clubbing earlier. Are there any fights that you thought someone clubbed you, or there any fights that you felt maybe got robbed? I guess not to blame the other fighter,
Um, yeah, there's a couple.
if you're allowed to talk to us about that.
Being who I am, I'm not gonna sit there and
Say that.
overly overly expose anything because I don't want to feel like it's making an excuse for why I lost a fight or may have
sure.
won a fight,
Yeah,
any of
that's
that.
understandable.
So, do I feel like there's matches that I've been clubbed? Definitely.
Gotcha.
But I'm gonna leave it to the sport and the way it turned out.
So to add on to that real quick, you talked to us about movement. You can't take steps. Do you kind of get some practice swings before you make the hit,
So
or do you
it's
line up your shot before you give the shot?
yeah. So in slap fight is it's the same technique I use in power slap, where you line up with the face on the first one with your hand, and then you do three wind up swings, and on the third one you hit. So
Okay.
basically, line up, go back. That's one. Go back two, and then on the third one you just swing all the way through.
And are you allowed to twist your body, get a little momentum behind that swing?
So you can twist everything that doesn't move your feet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So like when you're boxing or something, you can pivot and twist your heel, and that gives you more power. Basically, what they're trying to do with slap fighting is take as much power as possible away from you.
Okay. Yeah.
And that
So what
includes
is
hips, right? Too. I mean, you can
that's what I was going to
as
ask.
long
Yeah.
as you're not moving the okay. So not just as long as your feet aren't
Yeah.
being moved, you're able to get that momentum through the full force of your upper torso, however your technique be, right?
Yep.
Recently, you had an experience at the first part of this year, I think is when it aired, where you were able to compete in Vegas on TV related to the UFC's Power Slap League that you are now in. It's kind of a big stage. What was that like for you? Walk us through what was the trip like? What was that experience like for you? And just kind of walk us through how that went for you and just where was your head at and all of that?
Um. Honestly, it was pretty like humbling, and just it was just an kind of awe experience because when I first started slap fight, it was just for fun. It was just, hey, let's have some fun, see what happens. and there was really no future goal for it. I didn't know if I was going to be good at it. I didn't know if I was going to want to do it for very long. Any of that. So to see where we started to where it's going is absolutely amazing to me.
Definitely.
Um, it was my first time in Vegas,
Cool.
so it was it was definitely again just an awe experience. Like, hey, this sport has brought me to so many different possibilities, and what can possibly be next? Like what
And were the competition you had in Vegas, were those people from all over the United States, global? How many people were like roughly there, like competing? Like, what was the scale or the size of all of that?
Uh, I don't remember exactly how many people were there, but there were a lot of different people from a lot of different areas. That first one we did was qualifier matches to try and make it into the house to do like a if you've ever seen The Ultimate Fighter,
Hmm.
it was basically a slap fighting version of that.
Okay,
I ended up losing. I didn't make it into the house, but we got to go back actually just um, a couple weeks for a live event that we did, and um, I, we got to see Vegas and explore everything and have time to just do whatever, and it was so much fun.
that's awesome. And one of
That
the
is
key
cool.
differences that we noticed when we're looking at the footage, and I'll make sure as we're talking to this that we're going to have footage of some of your fights and that on here. But one of the key things we noticed that was different about the Vegas matches versus the ones that were more regional, where you're over the barrel, there's like there's more somatic. There's like a powder. What is that? Like, it seems like when you get hit, like, why is that different? What did they do differently at that UFC level of what is that powder? Did you know about it going into it? What is that?
So yeah, I did know about it before I even started. Um, I particularly don't care for it because it get into your eyes and stuff like that. But basically, what I would assume that that's used for is for one to mark where the slap's landing, and for two, um, it's a visual effect. So that makes the slaps, even though they can be insane, it makes them look so much more past that.
More dramatic.
Mhm.
And is that
So
it
it's
like a
kind of a dress up for TV, right?
It
Sorry to
is.
interrupt you.
No, no, you're fine. I was gonna. Is it a talcum powder? Like what
Yeah.
is it? Is it the stuff they use, the gymnasts use? What is it? Or like when you're lifting, what is that?
As far as I know, it's the same powder as what weightlifters use, the chalk.
Yeah, chalk. Okay, that
Gotcha.
makes sense. That makes total sense. All right,
All
Doug.
right.
I've been hogging him. Your turn.
Oh no, you're doing good. I'm learning so much about this.
This is awesome.
Now I'm kind of going through your profile on slap fights. Um, your human force is 45,572, and FR. I'll have to look that up, but I mean that seems like a lot. Peak velocity 7.56. And your neck force 335. All those seem like huge numbers. You got a lot of weight behind that hand. It seems like.
Yeah, it was
So,
funny. Me and because I'm not really good at doing all the math and stuff and figuring out all that stuff. So me and Jade actually went through a couple of those and figured them out, and it was amazing to hear what some of those numbers could actually
oh yeah.
equal.
Oh, you mean
So
equal? You mean wait? Well, you mean equal as in uh the force impact, like equivalent to like what, like a car crash? Like, what do you mean? Like,
So the peak velocity on their one,
mhm.
um, the I the she was able to figure out what it was for miles per hour.
Oh, okay.
Um,
oh awesome.
so it I think it equaled about 16 miles an hour.
That's kind of
Um,
quick.
and then I don't know if the shoulder force one is on there, but it was like 250 newtons or something. And
I've,
huh?
Go
oh,
ahead.
I was just not to interrupt you. I was going to say your neck force is 335 newtons.
Yeah, so there was the shoulder force was 252 newtons, I think.
Mm.
And then she got that figured out because that's just all that is just from your arm just like this and moving it on the weight thing, and it's equal to like a 57-pound bag of dog food.
Oh man.
So it's just funny to hear like how crazy those are. And I'm like, I
Absolutely.
can only imagine what
Getting
people feel when like if they hit anywhere near harder than I do. Or yeah.
and it's funny
Awesome.
because of slaps. We always talk about punches and stuff. Slaps always, kind of seem to be such an innocuous thing. But I mean, look at Will Smith smacking Chris Rock on stage, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
smacks can mess you up, as Frank has is proven to us.
Now, looking at Will Smith, will kind of go sideways. Can you rate his technique on his slap?
Yes. What do you
So are
think of
we
that?
talking about like out of a 10?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean,
10.
kind of critique his slap there. There you
Does
go.
he have a future in your path in
If
your league?
so, with him not being trained in it or anything, it was actually a really good slap, especially
Hey.
since he also did a pivot and everything too. It looked like it was just like one of those, just quick, not much force
Yeah.
behind it, but
And Chris Rock
it,
seemed like he took it like a champ. He didn't.
yeah, yeah.
So
No flinch, nothing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So credit to him as well.
Well, I don't
yeah,
think he knew it was coming either.
He didn't. So he didn't have time to flinch. He probably thought he's
Yeah.
coming up to give him a hug or something.
that's awesome.
All
Hey,
right,
I'll
Doug, you
finish
got the
up
next one.
real
Go ahead.
quick. Yeah. So I'm scrolling. I'm seeing all these as they're called strikers on their website. So there's one female on here, Hungarian Hurricane. Now, is she in a women's only league, or do you all do men versus women, or just women
Yeah,
versus?
that would be only women.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
she's on here. She's got one win, one loss. I didn't know because she's the only female on the front page there.
Yeah, the she did a fight during the qualifiers, and then she was the assistant coach to Darius when he coached for his side.
Gotcha.
Very cool. And you had a fight recently, didn't you? Wasn't it like was it last weekend or
Uh
2 weekends ago
yeah, the 11th.
of March? Gotcha.
Yeah,
And
last Saturday.
how did that go?
I lost.
That stinks.
Yep.
Like
It
lost
happened.
bad.
I wouldn't say I lost bad, but
Gotcha.
I mean, guy hit super hard. It
Yeah.
was a rough one.
Yeah.
So during all these fights, what do you think is the worst injury you've ever received?
Yeah. I asked about you giving. What about you getting?
Yeah.
What was the worst?
Yeah.
Usually my hand can get hurt pretty bad.
Really?
Between my wrist and my hand, like the swelling. So in power slap, it only goes 3 rounds, so there's not much time for you to really get injured. But doing like the 10 to 15 rounds I used to do a slap fight, my hand would get so swollen that it almost got to a point where in one of them I couldn't continue.
Oh, really? I hadn't
Just
thought
for
about the
your
hand.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I always focus on. I would think the face because it's such a sensitive area, but I never thought about your extremity, your hand actually being a problem. That makes total, especially with the amount of force that you were just explaining that is measured that you're swinging that with. I mean, that's something I
Well,
hadn't honestly thought of.
so I've gotten to a point, and I don't know if it's because of how many matches I've done or anything. I don't have too much swelling or bruising or anything anymore. So that part really doesn't bother me much at all anymore. Like I'll take like after the fights, I'll have a little bit of swelling on the inside of my cheek and everything, but I don't get much outside visual effects anymore.
Wow, so you can actually get used to taking those hits.
I think so.
Oh
Wow,
man.
that
Yeah.
is fascinating. I hadn't even thought of that. I want to tug on a little thing that you said a moment ago. You said that, when you kind of first got into it, and then you were also talking about your trip to Vegas, that you didn't really have any goals. You're just trying to have fun,
Mhm.
and which is awesome. It's really admirable. But do you have any? I get it. It's fun. You're not so concerned about the record. But do you have goals? Like, is obviously anyone would love to be a world champion of some sort, especially in the league that you're in now. But do you have like a grand goal, or do you set micro goals for yourself? And I get it. Your priorities are you just want to enjoy it. But do you set those goals for yourself? And if so, what are they?
So, I mean, on a home standpoint, because one of the things that this has helped me do is be so much healthier than I was when I first started. So those are more my higher goals for me. Is just to keep doing it, take care of myself, make sure I stay healthy, and have fun with it. Do I want to be a champion? Of course. That is a basic number one goal. But for me and the way I am, I feel like if I set like a certain goal that is it may or may not be reachable, that it's gonna deter me if I lose or something like that. So I don't really set super uh, unreachable goals that may or may not have a chance. I set the ones that I know for myself I can reach at a certain point with the work that I put in and all of that. So yeah, I have goals, but it's not the same as somebody would normally set.
I love your answer about how it has become more personal of a motivating factor for health. That's an awesome
That's really
answer, and
good.
honestly,
Yeah.
probably a good reason why you enjoy doing what you're doing. That's really cool.
So now you've been called. Do you have any belts now or
Yeah,
championships? Yep. Okay.
They
I
Can you
actually have
have.
talk about
belts.
those?
They
Uh huh.
have belts. That's so
Um,
cool. Oh no, we get to see
Uh
it.
oh. Oh, awesome. We get to see some stuff.
So if you're listening to the podcast at this point, it would be a good idea. Check us out on YouTube or on Spotify. See the video. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
it
look at
looks.
that.
That is so cool.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. Look
So
at
for
that.
our audio listeners, he is showing us a what I would call a WWE WWF
Yeah.
style belt,
It
but
kind of
it's
looks like the
awesome.
NXT belt. If you're familiar with WWE, there's
Oh yeah,
NXT, SmackDown, and Raw. But
taking
we're
it
not gonna.
back.
We're taking it back to no. It looks really cool. That is
That's really
so.
awesome.
I had no clue there were belts. I didn't. I'm
Yeah.
glad you put that question in, Doug, because I'm thinking like, are there trophies? Are there medals? That's
Right. Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. It's like a UFC belt too, as well. That's so
Now
cool.
I've heard you've been called the people's champion. What does that mean to you? You kind of the underdog or the one everybody likes to root for?
um.
Do they smell what you're cooking?
So
Uh
that
oh.
I that to me that can go a few different ways. The easiest way to explain it is me and another guy fought for that belt because we had the most views out of social media.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
So, I mean the way that I think about it is everybody likes watching me, everybody enjoys the way that I
Yeah.
carry myself, all of that kinds of stuff. But uh honestly, the only reason that I have that belt is because of everybody who supports me.
that's so
Oh, that's
cool.
awesome.
So I
Yeah.
don't think of it as I mean, yeah, it's mine and I get to have it and I have the actual like materialistic version of it, but that's everybody else's because
No,
if they weren't watching me or supporting me, I wouldn't have it.
That's so
that's
awesome.
really cool. Yeah, I like that.
So outside of the belt, I mean, obviously you got that, in your whole thing, but with the level you're at now, how does it work? Do they have prize money? I know like in UFC, you get in the octagon and they have an end game of, is there, and I know you're doing it to have fun, but do they have pot of money? Is that how this works? Is there a purse or like in boxing or how does that work with this? Or is it similar at all? Or is it a little different?
So yeah, there's so we sign contracts accepting the fight and there is money offered to show to win performance bonuses, any of that. So yeah, there is we do get paid for it.
Oh, okay. That's
Oh,
really cool.
cool.
And they do have tiered. I'm assuming if you win, you have tiered levels of what compensation you get back is based off of your performance. I assume, like any other sport.
Yeah, so like you can get money to show, and that's without winning the fight. So that's automatically given to you.
Mhm.
And then there is more if you win the fight, and then there's another additional amount if you get like a performance bonus.
Got it.
So like if you got like fight of the night, KO of the night, or um, anything like that.
Okay, that's really cool. So kind of like boxing or actual MMA, UFC, they do very similar structures. That's really cool.
So, do you have any sponsors or anybody you kind of rep, either on like your clothing or that helps you with the fight?
Uh, so we have like sponsors that are kind of like through the UFC and Power Slap, like they have their own sponsors, and then I have other sponsors through Power Slap that I've used. I don't have them personally, but they're with both different companies.
Oh,
So they're
gotcha.
they're
Um,
league level essentially, not individualized.
yeah.
Okay.
So like my mouth guard through Slap Fight was through Impact Mouth Guards,
Okay.
and we wear their mouth guard during our fight. And for instance, if we won our fight with their mouth guard in, they sent us a kit to mold a new mouth guard.
Oh,
Oh,
Um,
so they're custom. That's awesome.
yeah.
Oh,
And then, I mean, I have my own guy that I like to do shout outs for, Chris, my guy who trains me. And I bought a few of his shirts so I can start showing those off. But depending on what I'm doing or where I'm at, like for the Power Slap, they have their own stuff, so I can't really start shouting out all of my stuff through
sure.
all of theirs.
yeah.
So
Would they let you wear a Wired Nerd your podcast shirt on an event?
Uh, I don't know. They usually have us. They have fighter kits
I'm
that
sure
they
they do.
make us change into.
I'm sure they do. There was a reason why I'm asking that, by the
Yeah.
way. So we're getting, round to the end of at least the portion about your career. Then we're going to get into some nerdy stuff because, Frank, we know you're also a geek right along with us. But one of the round out questions we have here is before we jump into that is, you mentioned the support when we asked you about the People's Champion that Doug had asked you about with getting that belt in the sport. So what does your friends and family think about this? Like, how do they feel about it in the beginning versus now? Has it been support all the way through? Did you have to do some convincing? Like, do they think you were nuts when you came, you came to say, hey, I want to slap some dudes around? Like, what
Yeah.
is, so you mentioned support. Dive into that a little bit. What has that been like for you with friends and family, and how do they perceive or view what you're doing, both then and even now?
So for the most part, I think everybody, even now, thinks it's crazy because people watching it are like, I would fight somebody, or I wouldn't be able to do it. Um, I think it, for one, takes a whole different personality to be able to stand there and no guard, nothing, just let somebody hit you. Um, but overall, I have a lot of support from my family, and then, of course, Doug knows Jade. Um, the family I joined while I was doing this, getting a relationship with Jade and meeting Doug and all that kinds of stuff, has been, the support is absolutely amazing. There are two people that I would say will tell everyone and share it all. Um, Big Pop and Kathy are
Absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest supporters who would not come off right away as, hey, slap fighting is like the greatest thing ever. And, but yeah, the support is absolutely amazing. And it helps so much in having the people that basically have your back and are not trying to deter you from what you're doing. is big reason into my success into this sport.
That that is
Because
awesome.
Great answer. Yeah, I like that a
It's
lot.
like you have a fan club almost like with your family. That's
Oh yeah,
that's that's so cool. That is an awesome answer. And uh, I just want to round this out. So if anybody's watching this on YouTube or even on Spotify, feel free to put comments on this video, this podcast episode,
sure.
because I'm sure other people may have questions, Frank. And what we'll do is, just if you don't mind, as you have time, I know you're very busy, but as people ask questions out there, if there are any additional ones that we haven't covered specific to your career as a slap fight champion, if you wouldn't mind, just like cruise out there every now and then, and maybe throw some answers out there, because this is a fascinating emerging topic and it's becoming wildly popular. You're really kind of
Yeah,
riding that curve. You were talking about how the sport, from you've seen it at its inception at the very beginning, and now it's just starting to like balloon up into something that's really starting to enter the mainstream, and people are becoming aware of it in the main social aspect of it. So we'll have to have people ask questions, if you don't mind answering a few of them in our YouTube channel or
oh no, I
Spotify.
don't mind.
That'd be great.
awesome.
And Doug, we're going to shift gears, man. He Doug's going to get
We
nerdy now.
are
You started.
now. I'm getting excited. So
I
we
was
talk
already
about
excited, just for the record.
yeah, nerdy things. We talk about a lot of different categories, a lot of different topics on here, but one that we keep going back to is video games, whether it's on a console or a handheld or a PC. So this is kind of a multi. Do you play games, and what are you playing right now?
Yes, and I play. So right now, I'm big into Call of Duty. Um, of course, that's a super popular one.
Oh, absolutely,
Um,
yeah,
Wo Long on Xbox Game Pass has actually
Seen that.
caught my
Yeah.
attention,
I have not
and
tried it. I've seen it. That's a good call out. I'm adding that to my list, actually. I'm
absolutely,
glad
yeah.
you brought that up.
I really enjoy it. And all of my friends that I play with on Xbox thought I was going to hate it because I don't like Elden Ring and I don't like Dark Souls, and
I don't either.
it has that same kind of like gives off that vibe right off the bat
Mhm.
before you even touch it. Um, it is an actually extremely hard game. It took probably 20 to 30 tries for me to beat the first boss.
Oh man,
And but given that I stuck with it and kept doing it, it's super fun, has an RPG style to it. Build your character, earn gear, all of that kinds of stuff. And then I play Magic on my laptop.
Like Magic the Gathering.
Yep.
yeah. Now I'm glad you brought that up because we've had a lot of conversations about, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you are so good at Magic the Gathering, you make people rage quit.
So, contrary to everything in this video,
Okay.
Magic brings out the most toxic side of me that I
Hold
have.
up. Wait a minute.
Oh.
You slap people around professionally, but you're telling me that Magic the Gathering, the card game version, brings out the worst in you?
Oh man, we're getting in something deep here. I like it.
So, and Jade gives me so much crap over this, but I will make decks on that game entirely to see how fast I can make someone surrender.
Wow.
So I
That's
don't even
awesome.
have to win the game. I just want to join, play a few cards, and then they'll surrender.
Yeah, I believe I've watched one of those matches, and before you even moved, you're like, they're out. They left. I don't know where they went.
And are you doing the digital, like you're doing the digital version, or do you ever do in-person Magic the Gathering? Like, sometimes, like, I think it's not GameStops, but certain places will host them, whether it's at, conventions or even at stores. Do you do physical ones, or do you mainly doing the digital card ones? Like,
I used to play physical all the time. I used to do the Friday night magic, all of that, play on the weekends. I used to drive to a shop and play Yu-Gi-Oh and all that kinds of stuff and magic at the same time. But it got to the point um I ended up selling all of my cards and get rid of them all because I didn't play a whole lot anymore and they were just like collecting dust.
yeah.
But I found this I think a couple of years ago, and Like, so when you buy a pack of magic cards, you get 15 cards. It comes with some random cards. You don't know what you're going to get. You could be lucky or unlucky. With the actual system game, you can play, you earn gold on the game, you earn gems on the game, and you can pick what pack you want to open with gold or gems, whatever you want to spend, and you earn these things called wild cards. And there's common, uncommon, rare, and mythic. And if you, let's say you have a certain card that you want, you can use that wild card towards that card. You can actually pick what you want and it's not random.
Oh,
So I feel like it's more, even if you spend money on it, it's more budget friendly.
it also sounds like you can be more strategic too,
Yeah.
because
So,
yeah,
like, if you have a deck in mind and it comes from a certain pack, you can open the packs. You may or may not get the card. You'll get wild cards, and you can get it that way.
that's
Really
fascinating.
cool. Yeah.
Wow, I've not messed with the digital version of Magic the Gathering. I know they have a whole series of games, but I hadn't thought about the comparison between the digital version and even the physical version and the differences between that. That's pretty awesome. That is
And
cool.
it's all free too. So
Oh, well,
you
it's even
can
better.
play for
There you go.
free and then play through like the beginning story that they have, and you can unlock some pre-made decks. They may not be good, but it'll get you started.
So what I'm hearing, Frank, is if our podcast gets big enough, we're going to push for the Magic the Gathering company to sponsor you.
Yeah,
Oh, I I
absolutely.
would appreciate that.
He could be the official slap fight champion of Magic the Gathering.
That is
That would be,
awesome.
on that note, do you think if the popularity of your sport keeps going, do you think there'll ever be a slap fight video game?
Um, I don't see that
Like,
that would be a
what would you do,
good.
right?
I don't know because I don't know how popular that would be. Yes, it's fun to watch,
Mm-hmm.
but I can tell you if the video game was entirely just two people smacking each other, I don't know how much I would enjoy that.
It's true. But do you know what I think would work if we were in the Wii era and you had the
Uh-huh.
Wiimote and you just had
Oh,
a maybe something with motion control.
Better
You
hope
know,
someone doesn't walk by while you're doing it.
that is
oh,
true. Or maybe
very
there's a
cool.
future for VR if they have haptic suits and you can actually feel it. You know,
Sweet.
you could do slap fight championship from your living room in VR and actually feel
Do
the haptic suit.
the slap fight on Oculus.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. Do they actually have that, or do you think that would be the best platform?
Uh I think that would probably be one of the VRs would probably be one of the better platforms.
You could make it like, even if you couldn't feel it. Obviously, I was joking about the haptic. We're not there yet. It's not like Ready Player One, but you could in the view make it go
Yeah,
red and blurred and disorienting and
Hmm.
noise. Right? I mean,
that would be
so
good.
hey, we're on to something.
I think if people could feel what it feels like though, I don't think they would do it.
I'm 100% sure of. So Doug had touched on this when he started the conversation of video games, but do you game console or PC, and do you have a gaming console or laptop? What's your preference, and what's your platform of choice right now?
So my platform of choice has always been Xbox, uh, for probably over 15 years now.
Sure.
Um, I like PC, and I'm trying to get into it, but the way that I would have to like split what I'm doing and what I'm playing, I always go back to Xbox. So I have a few games that I actually do play on PC now. I play Paragon, um, and my Magic, and those are the ones that I can't get on Xbox.
Sure.
So I like if I go somewhere and I don't want to take my Xbox with me or something, I'll take the PC and I'll play.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, and then you have the advantage with you doing that, though. If you ever were to take advantage of, for example, they have the Xbox Game Pass, you could have those same games on your Xbox and on your laptop. So,
I I
you know,
actually play Wolong on my
oh,
laptop when I'm
Oh,
not at my Xbox.
there you go. See, that's the beauty of the way they have that set up. So that's really cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
the cloud gaming.
Yeah, coming a long way. All right, Doug, you're up.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna throw a couple or quick fire ones at you. Your
Rapid
favorite
fire.
movie,
Favorite movie.
The gamer.
The
Ooh.
Gamer. Awesome.
Wait, the one with Gerard Butler, right?
Yes.
I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. That is a good movie. All right,
I
that's
like
good.
that.
And what's your favorite superhero from comic books?
Juggernaut.
Oh,
Ooh. Well, you went.
I did not
Juggernaut's a
see that.
villain.
Oh, well.
No, it counts. I'm gonna count it.
No, it's good. Yeah,
It counts.
he's kind of slapping people with his head, right?
Well, yeah. He's a good character. I like that. That's
Yeah.
good. All right.
All right,
You're
Marvel
next.
or DC? Tough choice.
It is. I think I like more of the Marvel characters than I do DC. So I'm
Yep.
going to have to go with Marvel.
Awesome.
That's fair. That's fair. We are getting close to our time. Well, that time flew by, Frank. My God, you are so much fun to interview, buddy. So we may have you back for a round 2 if you don't mind. You know, as a thank you. So when Doug and I started this, we were talking about how we want to do the format, the things we want to talk about. You were the top of our list, and we wanted to make absolutely sure you are our first interview ever on the podcast as we do this. And as a way to say thank you, Doug, let them know.
We got you, and see if I can hold it up. A T-shirt.
Look at that.
Ooh, yeah.
That's why I was asking about the T-shirt earlier. See if you'd be willing to wear that bad boy at some point. Get some promo out there.
Definitely.
We'll sponsor you. How's that sound?
Hey, I'm down.
Awesome.
Man, this has been
great.
An absolute blast, and we want to thank you for your time. You've been very, very generous. We know you're extremely busy. We've learned a ton. I want to encourage everybody to continue and put comments out there. Doug, any other closing parting words before we round this out?
Yeah, just say thanks to Frank the Tank. Keep slapping the heck out of people and training and living a healthy life and playing all them games, being a nerd.
Yeah. And Frank, if people want to check out your fights, what is the best way to do that? Is the UFC putting them on their site, or do they have a YouTube channel? I'm sure. Like, what's the best way if people want to go check you out and check out all of the stuff that you've been doing in your leagues?
So Power Slap is posting all of their stuff, and you can actually watch the last event on Rumble app.
Okay, perfect.
And then if you want to watch like my stuff before Power Slap, it's just under Slap Fight Championship and then Frank the Tank. But there'll be a whole bunch of all the other fighters are on there too.
That is awesome. That's good to know. Man, thank you so much for your time. This has been a blast. Everyone, thank you for joining us and listening. We hope you enjoyed this time that we had with Frank, and we will definitely see you guys next week, where we are going to dive into a recent adventure that Doug and I had at a Comic Con. Actually, it was Doug's first Comic Con, so
it was exciting.
Yeah, he's no longer he's now not pure anymore. He's I know. Look at that face. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a good time. Well, everyone, have an awesome week. Thank you for joining us for this episode number 7. Frank, thank you for your time. You've been very gracious, and we are signing off. Everyone, have a great week.
See ya.